Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Got a great Monday show for you guys today. Lots and lots of stuff. Hope everybody had an excellent weekend. I was at the Bernie rally in Lansing. That was super cool, super fun. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. I don't know. But we got a lot of stuff here today. We got a big show. We got Trump being an idiot. Then we've got great news on DACA. Then we're going to go into detail what the Koch brothers are doing and what they plan to do. Then we're going to go into the Democrats. We're going to talk about the DCCC attacking fellow progressives, or, well, maybe not a fellow progressive because it is the DCCC, but they are attacking progressives. We've got that story and a lot more, so stick around for the next hours. We go around the nation for some of the best stories in progressive political commentary that you will find around the web or around the nation, if you will. So all that fun stuff. Let's get started with Trump. Oh, before that, please like and share. That really helps. Sharing is caring, so that really helps. So, like, share, please. Share everywhere you can. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. So please hit that share button. All right. That said, let's dive into it. Donald Trump. Let's go. I wish I could say it's unbelievable. All right. So now that it's been revealed that not just one, but 4 armed officers had not attempted to stop the Parkland Florida shooter, Trump is piling on, doubling down, and even going more absurd. Now, recently over the weekend, he hammered the former school resource officer, that's Scott Peterson, for standing outside the school while the shooting was taking place. Now, in fact, he was talking during a speech at CPAC, right? The Conservative Political Action Committee. Wonderful place. Filled with wonderful, empathetic people. You can tell I'm being a little sarcastic there. He said that Scott Peterson doesn't love the children. Probably doesn't even know the children. He was the school resource officer. Of course he knows the children. That's ridiculous. Oh, yeah, he didn't love the children, man. Now, look, you could say that he was scared, and his lawyers, of course, coming out and saying differently. No, he thought the shooting was happening outside, and he was taking preventative measures. We don't necessarily know. But here's Trump saying, no, he was a coward. He didn't do his job, which I think is clear. But to imply that he did not love the children and was content to see them get mowed down, look, I think that's absurd, okay? Like I said, get mad at Scott Peterson all you want, but to say that he didn't love the children, ridiculous, right? Now, the AR-15, that's the gun that the shooter used, right? That can fire 5 rounds a second. You can go through an entire magazine of 30 rounds in 6 seconds using that rifle. That's not with the bump stock. Bump stock makes it even faster. That is 5 rounds a second. So if you're up against that, and you know you're up against that, which maybe he did, maybe he didn't, and he's got, what, probably a service revolver, 6 rounds when it comes to a revolver, not many much more if you have a service pistol. Look, man, he's outgunned. He was outgunned, plain and simple. So I think from a logical standpoint, I could understand why, if he knew that, why he wouldn't go in. Now, that said, he still should have. That was his job. He was there to do that. So, look, he didn't do his job. At least when you look at it superficially like that. But who knows if he could have stopped it, or if he could have saved any lives, or if he would have added, or if he would have been the 18th body that had piled up. I don't know. Look, all this stuff, we have no idea. Okay? However, Trump thinks that maybe he does know. In fact, let's ask him.
You know, I really believe, you don't know until you test it, but I think I really believe I'd run in there even if I didn't have a weapon. And I think most of the people in this room would have done that too, because I know most of you. but the way they performed was really a disgrace.
If I'd have been there, if only I'd have been there, I would have ran in. Even if I had a gun and I'd have run in, saved the children, no, you would have been an extra body in the floor. That's what would have happened. Look, the whole point here, the whole problem here is that we're talking about a false narrative, right? If only more people had guns in the schools, well, then we could have prevented this. Or if more force had been applied in this situation, well, then they could have stopped with a minimal amount of death. Or how about you not have the guns in the schools in the first place? Jesus, man. Look, on Trump, it's ridiculous. He's coming out here and armchair quarterbacking. This guy wouldn't even go to Vietnam. How many deferments has he had? He's had 5. 5 deferments. One of them was for fucking bone spurs. Bone spurs. See, this is what drives me crazy about President Trump. Oh, no, I would have gone in. Even if I hadn't had a weapon. I know you all would have. Yeah, okay, you're a big tough guy, right? No. He can't help himself saying stupid, ridiculous things. He's got to make everything about him and about how great and strong and brave he is. Oh my God, he's so wonderful. Conservatives, you like this guy. You love this guy. He has an over 80% approval rating among Republican voters. The emperor has no clothes, and they don't care. They're following somebody who's a completely self-absorbed moron, and they just don't care about it. It's the same thing with Ted Nugent, right? Ted Nugent is a conservative hero. Oh, they love him. This is a man who literally crapped himself instead of go to war. And then later on claimed, oh, no. See, if you would have sent me, I'd have killed them all. I'd have single-handedly won the war. No, he didn't say that, but that's the gist of it, man. Well, why weren't you there, cowboy? Why were you sitting in your own shit for a month? If you were so brave. If you could have took them all on by yourself. No. These people are sad and weak and pathetic. And they cover up for their own insecurity. That's what Donald Trump's doing, man. He is a pathological liar. He is an egotistical maniac. And yet these people love it. Love him. They love everything he does. Insanity. Insanity. Okay. That's enough on that. Moving on, let's go to DACA. So there's some huge news on DACA. Now, this is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. This deals with kids or people who were brought to this country illegally when they were children. So, look, if you're brought here from Mexico when you're 3 years old, it's not necessarily your fault. What are you going to do? No, Mom, I can't go. I'm going to be an illegal. I'm going to run afoul of some ridiculous U.S. law. So, no, they're going to go with, right? So they leave their country, Mexico or wherever, South America, and some place, situations where their lives were literally at stake, and they had to move. So they come to America, and President Obama allows them to stay, allows them to work, get jobs, go to school under this program. So now Donald Trump, of course, he rises to prominence among the right by saying the worst things about immigrants, and especially undocumented immigrants. And this includes people under the DACA program. So he shuts it down back in September. He says, Democrats, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Democrats? You're going to make a deal with me on the fucking wall. And that's what you're going to do. So now there's actually some good news on this. So Trump tried to shut this program down. It looks like for now, the Dreamers are safe. Now this is temporary. Now, Vox explains that on Monday, the Supreme Court rejected a highly unusual request from the Trump administration. So what they wanted to do, the Trump administration wanted to skip some steps and immediately remove DACA. The Supreme Court's like, no, we're not even going to listen to this request because it's incredibly unusual and it kind of goes against the process that you're supposed to go through. So they said that the Trump administration wanted to skip over the second level of the federal court process by having the Supreme Court consider an order made in January by a California District Court judge. Now, the January order partially reanimated the DACA program with the Trump administration, which the Trump administration began winding down back in September, with the expectation that work permits issued under the program would expire in large numbers on March 5th. So that's where that March 5th deadline comes from. Now, immigrants who have work permits under DACA, Fox continues, or whose work permits recently expired are currently eligible to apply for renewals under the order. The Trump administration is trying to get that order overturned so that it doesn't have to renew any work permits while the case over the constitutionality of ending DACA works through the courts. Now, they say that this process is going to take quite a while, months, and it's very unlikely that both appeals courts, which, look, these appeals courts, the Second Circuit and the Ninth Circuit, they're actually fairly liberal, right? They're not going to come down on the side of the administration. So that means that the renewals so far will remain open, at least until the Supreme Court agrees to take up the cases after the appeals court rules. Now, that'll take place later on, the court's next term, or will almost certainly take place during that time, which starts in October of next year. So at this point, you might see a couple of different things happen. You could see Congress act and actually pass Clean Dream Act. I would be shocked if that's were to happen, but again, you never know, right? Or the court could again take up the issue of DACA itself and decide on the merits of the case. Now, it's very important to note that that's not what's happening right now. They're not actually taking the merits of the case. They're just saying, you can't actually do this that fast. You've actually got to go through the process. So, no, we're going to let those people continue to do these renewals. Now, the Department of Justice, as it stands right now has two different rulings that it has to fight against, that it's got to overturn. So, look, again, this is good news, but this doesn't mean that DACA is safe. Remember, the fight, again, isn't about whether it's legal to end DACA at all. That's not what they're fighting about. It's about how the administration actually did it. So very, very important distinction. So that means that, yes, while this is good in the short term, we do need a permanent long-term solution. Of course, ideally, that would include a pathway to citizenship. DACA is not enough. These people have lived here pretty much their entire lives. They have careers. They have education. It would be a waste to put all that money into these people and all that time to just send them to another country. No, they're already here. Just make them citizens already. These people they're not criminals. They're not rapists. They're all good people. So, yes, keep them here, give them a pathway to citizenship so they can actually participate in society. Society that they will gladly help improve with their skills, with their money. Now, I don't think that's going to happen under the Trump administration. Look, any pathway to citizenship, Donald Trump put out his own immigration plan or plan for DACA recipients that said, okay, look, we're going to give you some concessions, or at least one concession in the form of pathway to citizenship, 12 years. But in return, we end chain migration, which in itself is incredibly problematic. And we're basically gonna limit legal immigration, and we're gonna build a wall. Absolutely not. That is a non-starter. That's $25 billion for a wall that's not actually going to work. That's ridiculous. It's a waste of money. In my opinion, that is a non-starter. Now, there is a little bit of hope. The best, I think, scenario in this situation, this is the best scenario that I can come up with, is that the courts get tied up past the midterm elections. And during that midterm, we have a progressive wave. And they actually do the right thing and actually save DACA, or do everything that they can and basically force Donald Trump to go along with them to save the DACA program. Now, whether or not that actually happens, that's a different question. But that's why it's actually important to get involved. we've got to get that progressive majority. We've got to get strong progressives into office who will actually protect this program, which is important for over 800,000 DACA recipients. They cannot wait. We need those strong progressives. Get involved. Get into the primaries, man. Primary elections are super, super important. They're actually more important than general elections. So get in there so you can pick that strong progressive and then crush the corporate Republican. So get out there, vote in the midterms, register if you haven't already, and all that. But again, the good news here is we have DACA renewals. That March 5th deadline, it's over, but there is still a lot of work to be done to save the dreamers. But at least there is one small victory. That's good. And for now, I'll take it. Okay. Moving on. So over the last year, as the Trump White House bounces from scandal to scandal, media coverage covers tweets incessantly, and the next ridiculous thing President Trump has to say, Republican donors have been quietly profiting while everyone else is distracted from Trump's policies. Now, of course, these are donors like Koch brothers. Now, the Koch brothers have been racking up win after win, according to documents obtained by The Intercept. Again, this is policy stuff that you don't hear much of in mainstream corporate media. So I want to lay those out for you and tell you what this memo actually says and why the Koch brothers are celebrating. Now, these documents that are obtained by The Intercept, as I said before, basically outline what policy achievements they have been able to get in this first year of President Trump. They said this year, thanks in part to research and outreach efforts across institutions, we have seen progress on many regulatory priorities this network, the Koch network, has championed for years. Progress. That's not exactly what I would call it, but that's what they're saying. Progress, of course, on their priorities. Now, what are their priorities? Deregulation and more favors for corporations. Now, Lee Fong writes, the document highlights environmental issues that the Koch brothers have long worked to undo, such as the EPA Clean Power Plan. Now, of course, what's one of the things that President Trump immediately did? Let's get rid of the Obama Clean Power Plan. Oh, it's hurting coal. No. Market forces are hurting coal. Market forces are what's killing coal. Coal ain't coming back because natural gas is cheaper. Now, unfortunately, natural gas is also not a clean fuel. It does release a lot of methane, and it dirties groundwater. But compared to coal, it is relatively cleaner, to be fair. But of course, it's also being outdone by solar and wind. But here's Donald Trump saying, oh, we got to save the coal industry because coal is amazing. And by the way, it's so clean. I mean, they take the coal out of the ground and they scrub it real nice, and it shines like a diamond. No, it doesn't. Even though it does eventually become a diamond under really, really high pressures. But it's a little science stuff. But anyway. No, we got to push that coal, that clean coal. And part of that problem is the Obama Clean Power Plan, which actually would reduce emissions from coal plants. So let's get rid of that, which right now they are in the process of formally repealing it. And not only that, Donald Trump has also withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, that's the tentative agreement that we should try to keep emissions under a certain level so that we hit 2 degrees warming. Well, we are way on track to be far, far above 2 degrees. So we're not going to hit that target. Now, especially under President Trump, we're nowhere near it. So that's, of course, very, very disastrous. The Koch brothers are saying, no, victory. Absolutely. Yay. We got rid of the Clean Power Plan, and now we withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, the memo also highlights administration efforts to walk back planned rules to strengthen the estate tax in a list of 13 regulatory decisions favored by the network. So, okay. The memo basically celebrates making sure that climate change gets worse. They're celebrating that, right? They rolled back the modest reforms under the Obama administration. And on top of that, they're celebrating the gigantic tax cuts for rich people. Well, of course, the Koch brothers are going to get massively rich. They're going to make over $1 billion from this tax cut. Wonderful. Great for them. Now, that ensures, of course, the changes to the estate tax, for example, they ensure generational wealth. You're building dynasties here. The thing that we're not supposed to have in America, that's the whole reason that we have the estate tax, is that we don't have enormous dynastic wealth that is so separated from the rest of the American people. It's part of that American dream where anybody can make it. Well, if all the wealth and the resources are at the top and they've stayed there for generations, 10, one generation, 2 generations, 100, 200 years, well then you're not going to have people that are able to move up. But the Koch brothers, they think that's great. They're like, yes, we want all the wealth. We'll take all the wealth. We'll pass it down to our kids. They'll pass it down to their kids and their kids and grandkids, all that stuff. And we're just going to be super rich. The hell with everybody else. We don't care about anybody else. We don't care. They don't sign our paychecks. And that's what this is all about. I mean, look, on the environment, for example, you think the Koch brothers care about the environment? No, they're going to be dead. So, and their money, at least for a while, is going to protect them from the worst impacts of climate change. So what do? I mean, like, again, they're not going to worry about anything. No, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing in order to make themselves even more money. Because they know, hey man, we're going to be just fine. It's fine. And that's what they're doing. They're making billions of dollars off of this administration with all the different changes, the deregulation, and now the gigantic tax cuts. And they were able to do so not just by buying off the politicians. Now, that's actually the easy part. But they've also developed this huge network of groups in order to push people into buying their agenda. Now, Fong explains that the network's political operation includes a polling and research outfit, Capitol Hill lobbyists, several hundred field staff, groups designed to air campaign ads, and an assortment of grassroots groups set up to appeal to certain constituencies. And I use the term grassroots very loosely. It actually seems more like an AstroTurf operation. Now, you guys remember when the Tea Party was first formed, when they actually were there out there protesting the bailouts? Oh, it was good times, man. They were protesting the banks. And then, look, there was some actual general anger in the country about bailing out Wall Street, who caused the financial crisis. And so, look, yeah, they were angry. And then the Koch brothers, they came and they co-opted the movement. They paid people, they brought them in giant buses, and then suddenly this protest against bank bailouts became a protest against Obamacare. Like, what the hell? But see, if you've ever wondered why the right wing always calls every spontaneous, organic left-wing protest paid, it's because it's nothing more than projection. That's exactly what they do. They come in there and they say, okay, let's either create this movement or let's co-opt this movement. We're going to bring in a lot of our paid protesters, and we're going to, get all the cable TV, because you remember during the Tea Party protests, you'd have 5 or 6 people out there, and mainstream media would be like, oh my God, look at the Tea Party protests. Amazing. A couple of guys walking around with stupid tea hats. Ridiculous. But they got all the media coverage because, look, media loves right-wing protests, and they kind of ignore, and they either ignore or they cast complete disdain on left-wing protests. I mean, you look at all the different left-wing protests. Oh, what are they even? Occupy. What are they even complaining about? They're complaining about the fact that there is an enormous gap of wealth between rich and poor. And they would actually like to do something about it. But you don't hear about that. Oh, why are they protesting? I know. Let's just throw some McDonald's applications onto the crowd. That'll get them. Ridiculous. Okay. But look, no regular person on these protests, right, says, hey, you know what? Let's cut my Social Security and Medicare because I believe the Kochs need another tax cut. No, that's not something regular people do. So again, the right, with their projection, thinks, well, yeah, of course the left has to pay people to protest. Well, that's what we do. But in reality, of course, like I said, the vast majority of the country disagrees with the aims of the Koch brothers. They don't want to give more tax cuts to the rich. And they don't want to make the income divide even further. And they especially don't want to cut things like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security in order to do that. So, but anyway, these groups that are in the Koch network, according to Fang, are the Libre Initiative. Now, this is a network group geared towards selling Koch policy to Latino communities. Good luck. Generation Opportunity, which works to reach out to millennials and college students. So that's them, of course, putting in their propaganda into the schools. And Veterans for America, for veterans and military-minded voters. So, well, of course, I think in that group, you'll have definitely a lot of people joining in because the Koch brothers call themselves libertarians. They don't want to spend money. They believe in fiscal responsibility, but they're perfectly fine with spending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on our military adventurism. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. These are the people that claim to care about the deficit. These tax cuts, plus increasing the military budget, are leaving a gigantic hole in our budget. Again, $1.5 trillion in just tax cuts for the rich. And then adding even more when it comes to military spending. It's amazing. Now, to win support for this tax plan, which gives 83% of the gains to the rich, the Koch brothers network claims that it organized over 100 rallies in 36 states, contacted over 1.8 million activists, knocked on over 33,000 doors. The group also spent freely on digital and television advertisements with $1.6 million in TV spots to support the legislation in Wisconsin alone. Now, that is some serious money being spent. But look at this. Oh, 33,000 doors. That's like one state. Just saying. And they're boasting about this countrywide. All right, man. Sure thing. But look, the thing is, maybe I shouldn't be so dismissive because it actually works. The tax cuts are now at a 51% popularity with the American people. They're becoming more popular thanks to the power of propaganda. This is despite over 50% of people saying that they have not seen benefits of the tax cuts. Like, I haven't seen anything on my paycheck. An additional quarter amount of people polled, 25%, say that, well, we don't know if we had any impact on our paycheck. And the other quarter, the rest of the people are like, oh, yeah, I've seen some benefit. Well, I'm assuming those people are higher earners. Look, Paul Ryan, by the way, he deleted a tweet originally where he was like, oh, see that teacher? She was making an extra $1.50 a week. The tax cuts are working. It's trickling down all over the place. Look at how much it's trickling down. It's actually not. The average high earner, unless, of course, you're a high earner, who has an average of $50,000 that's saved that much per year in the tax cuts. But again, this is a great example of the power of propaganda. You put it out that everybody's benefiting, and then, oh, look at the bonuses from Sam's Club and Walmart, when Sam's Club and Walmart are cutting 10,000 jobs. Carriers cutting jobs, moving to Mexico. Verizon, Comcast, they're cutting jobs. Oh, but they're giving out bonuses. How dare you make fun of the crumbs? No, they're crumbs, and then they're also cutting jobs on top of that. If they were serious about actually sharing with their employees, that would raise wages to at least a living wage. But they, of course, do not, because that might actually cost them a little bit more, where these bonuses are actually a very, very small fraction of their profit margins. But anyway, now, I mentioned the deficit earlier, right? This is all of course, after the Koch network during the Obama years would scream and howl about the deficit, they are now completely silent. The Intercept previously reported the Koch network told its surrogates to downplay concern over the deficit in order to convince lawmakers to support the package. Gee, I wonder why. Could it be that Republicans don't actually care about the deficit? Doesn't actually matter to them? No, they spend just as much, if not more, than the Democrats do. The thing is that their priorities are different. So instead of spending money on programs that help poor Americans, middle class, or do things like infrastructure, here you have Republicans saying, no, we're just going to give gigantic tax cuts to the rich and corporations, and we're going to spend more on the military. So those are our priorities. Everybody else can go suck it, because we love the military-industrial complex. It's not going to our troops. It actually goes into defense contractors that get billions of dollars to build planes and tanks and things that we don't actually need. And while our troops are on food stamps, which, by the way, food stamps are one of the things that the Trump budget that came out, which is heavily influenced by the Koch brothers and conservative Republicans, would reduce to a food box program. So there's that. But again, Republicans, they get rewarded for this. In fact, Paul Ryan, good example of that. Charles Koch and his wife donated, just days after the tax bill passed, $500,000 to Paul Ryan's joint fundraising leadership PAC. This is without even knowing that if Paul Ryan is going to run again. I don't care. Here's your reward. You served us well, Paul Ryan, so here's $500,000. Now, the memo also goes into detail about what they're going to do next. Now, this considers the power of unions. Now, this broad attack that they're planning is on private sector labor unions controlled by Republicans. So what they're trying to do is that they're going to go after private sector unions. Once they're completely destroyed, then they're coming after the public sector unions. So this is stuff like right-to-work legislation. Now, the memo notes that the Trump administration has shelved a number of Obama-era rules that were viewed as too friendly to workers and to labor unions, including the overtime rule and the joint employer rule. The latter would have reduced the barriers for workers at franchise businesses like fast food to be able to form a union. Now, the memo says labor reform is not an overnight process. Advancing major federal labor reform requires a long-term strategy. To that point, the Koch network plans to press forward with the Employee Rights Act and legislation to extend right-to-work laws nationally and set up new barriers for labor activists hoping to form new unions. They're spelling it out. We're going to do right to work, which is not actually right to work, and we're going to set up barriers for people to unionize. We're going to make sure that it's harder for you to join with your fellow employees to collectively bargain for better wages and benefits. Ridiculous. And look, by the way, I love how Orwellian this name is. Oh, it's the Employees' Rights Act. No, but it doesn't have anything to do with rights. In fact, it strips people of rights to unionize. Now, the memo also addresses the Supreme Court and what they plan to do for that. He said if President Trump nominates a principled constructionist nominee for Justice Kennedy's seat or any other vacancy, we anticipate engaging with both grassroots and under-the-dome tactics, bringing paid and earned media events to support the confirmation. Now, the memo notes that among its many achievements, their sponsored pressure effort on Senator Joe Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Donnelly worked and eventually got them to support Neil Gorsuch. But that Supreme Court seat was stolen by the Republicans. Look, President Obama already had this nominee. And the Republicans said, yeah, good luck with that. We're going to block it. Mitch McConnell blocked it for over a year until President Trump came into office, the Democrats gave up on this stolen seat, and they said, okay, you can have it. Here's Neil Gorsuch, one of the most pro-corporate justices to ever grace the Supreme Court. He's somebody who ruled in favor of a trucking company after a guy who didn't want to freeze to death left his truck. Oh, no, you're supposed to stay with that truck and freeze to death. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what Neil Gorsuch wrote, in his opinion. He even had fellow Republicans saying, "No, wait a minute, dude. Neil, that's a bridge too far, dude. Don't care. I will support corporations 150% over people." Maybe he thinks corporations are better people than people. I don't know. But this effort led by the Koch brothers got Joe Manchin, Heidi Heitkamp, and Joe Donnelly, again, Democrats, old Democrats, to support Gorsuch for that stolen seat. Centrist Democrats, they disgust me. I mean, seriously. Anybody who's in the state, and by the way, there are progressive challengers to Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Manchin. You want to get those guys out of office, now's the time. There's a primary coming up. Paul and Gene Swearengin, great. Dustin Peyer, also great. Look them up. Support them. Support their campaigns. But look, that's what they plan to do, and that's what they have done. Okay? So, one more piece of information, I guess, about what they plan to do, because they're not done, right? They also plan to jump into the midterms. Fong writes, operatives from the network recently led sessions at a retreat to explain how to move forward in the midterm elections. The Koch brothers intend to spend $400 million to preserve the Republican majority in Congress and maintain GOP power at the state level. And there's a reason, of course. It's because they're massively benefiting. Charles Koch said, "We've made more progress in the last 5 years than I had in the last 50. The capabilities we have now can take us to a whole new level. And I do not want to be on that level." I'm hoping you don't either. That's why you got to get involved. Like, there's an army of lobbyists and billionaires and people that are hired by the Koch network that all want the same thing. They want to take your Medicare. They want to take your Medicaid and Social Security. Trump's budget is the dream budget, but that is their blueprint of what they want to do. And it cuts all those things. Over $1 trillion in Medicaid spending cut in this budget. Not only that, but they also cut food stamps. And they replaced half of the benefit with a pre-selected box of food. You got to vote in the midterms. You don't think this can happen? A lot of people thought Donald Trump could never get elected. We live in a world where anything can happen. So that's why it's more important than ever. Get involved. Get involved. These Republicans are ready, and they will not stop. They are relentless. And you know what? We've got to be relentless too. They have only begun the greatest robbery in the history of America. If you throw your hands up and you decide, I'm not going to get involved, you might as well just hand them your wallet. Here you go. Just take all my money and shower it on rich people. I'll do it myself. I'll take out whatever I have left, and I'll just throw it at the next billionaire that I see. That's what you're doing, because they're coming for your wallet anyway. And all this shows that's exactly what they're going to do. So midterms, and even more important than midterms is primaries. God, we can get rid of Democrats, corporate Democrats, like Feinstein. We can get rid of Pelosi. We can get rid of Joe Manchin and Heidi Heitkamp. We can replace them with actual progressives. All of them have wonderful progressive challengers. Look into it. We cannot sit on the sidelines. Now is the time to get involved. The Koch brothers are telling you, they're laughing at you, they're rubbing it in your face. They're telling you, haha, we've got control now. And this is what we're going to do. And every one of these things is going to screw you over. Whether it screws you over now or it screws you over or your kids over down the line when it comes to climate change. They're screwing us. That is their plan, to benefit themselves. You've got to fight. You've got to get involved. No more sitting in the sidelines. Let's go. Let's go. Let's fight already. Round the nation. All right, everybody, welcome back. Round the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So if you haven't already, please give us a like and share. Sharing is caring, of course. That helps out greatly. I can't get over the corporate Democrats, man. They just absolutely just piss me off so much. And they're some of the worst. And I've got one story here that lays it out why. So I'm going to get into that. All right. All right. So Laura Moser is a progressive Democrat. She's running in Texas. Now, she's actually known as one of the heroes of the Trump resistance. So she created this tool that allows people to go and do political activism, which I think is fantastic, right? So, look, in this race, she happens to be under attack, well, understandably. However, the people that are attacking her are supposed to be allies. These are fellow Democrats. But wait a minute. I thought there was supposed to be unity after 2016. Of course not. But maybe you're thinking, okay, look, maybe there's a reason, right? Maybe they're attacking her for a legitimate reason. I mean, something that I'm hearing go around about her is corruption. Okay, well, The Intercept explains. The DCCC, that's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, took the extraordinary step of publicly attacking a prominent Democratic candidate in a contested primary. This is DCCC Communications Director Meredith Kelly. He talked to the Texas Tribune, and he said, voters in Houston have organized for over a year to hold Representative John Culberson accountable and win this Clinton district. Now, that is, of course, the incumbent Republican in this district. Now, again, it's interesting because he's like, well, Clinton won in this district over Trump, so why couldn't a Democrat actually win here? No, that's what they're trying to do. That's what Laura Moser is trying to do. But again, this is a contentious primary. And here's the DCCC saying, well, don't primary. Let's not run primaries. Let's not especially run primaries to the left. Bad idea. We're going to lose to John Culberson. Okay. Well, that's their opinion. I think primaries are great. But it's going just beyond, hey, primaries, you're going to hurt the Democratic opponent, and we could actually have a really good shot at winning the seat. No, they're saying that unfortunately Laura Moser's outright disgust for life in Texas disqualifies her as a general election candidate and would rob voters of their opportunity to flip Texas to 7th in November. Disgust for life in Texas. So, of course, they take her out of context in an article that she had written and use that to smear her. Well, okay, again, that's opposition research. In fact, this is part of an opposition dossier the party had compiled upon Moser. Now, that's actually very rare because normally the party does not release opposition dossiers on candidates. They rarely do so against other Democrats. In fact, they mostly save it for Republicans. So, boy, Laura Moser must have done something incredibly wrong to earn the ire of the DCCC. I'm going to get to that. They said, Democratic voters need to hear that Laura Moser is not going to change Washington. She is a Washington insider who begrudgingly moved to Houston to run for Congress. So, again, here's the DCCC in a very ironic twist, saying, look at that. She's an outsider. No, she's an insider. She's not an outsider. We're the outsiders. But wait a minute. No, the DCCC is the consummate insider. So I don't know where you're going with this, but it's not looking good. Now, Moser, funny enough, she's a Justice Democrat. Now, that means that you don't take corporate or PAC money. So how can you be an insider if you're not taking insider money? Again, basically the DCCC is saying, no, our candidates, we're the outsiders because we're taking corporate PAC money and running a bunch of ads from consultants. Now, consultants will play into this. Now, again, speaking to what the insiders are in this race, you have Lizzie Peniel Fletcher. Now, Lizzie Peniel Fletcher has been endorsed by the pro-choice women's group, Emily's List. Now, look, Emily's List does a lot of great work when it comes to supporting pro-choice candidates. But when it comes to progressives, they haven't exactly been good on that issue, okay? Supporting progressive women candidates who are, again, openly pro-choice. But as the article notes, the DCCC and Emily's List kind of go hand in hand. Or the article mentioned they went hand in glove. So everywhere you see an Emily's List endorsement, for the most part, you will see the DCCC working to endorse the same people. Sometimes it's a progressive, sometimes it's your establishment Democrat. So there's another candidate in the race between Moser and Fletcher, and this guy literally worked for Goldman Sachs. He told people on the campaign that he was recruited by the DCCC. This is according to local indivisible leader Daniel Cohen. So, great. Goldman Sachs guy, Moser, progressive, Justice Democrat, and then Fletcher. Well, what about Fletcher? Well, let me give you some background information on her. Fletcher was a corporate lawyer. Look, I'm not saying all corporate lawyers are bad, but you're running in a race, you claim to be an outsider, you want to be a progressive, that doesn't necessarily always mesh. But there's more. Apparently, she has ties with a mega donor, steel magnate, and had worked for a firm that routinely represented the interests of big corporations. In fact, the firm that she had worked for recently defeated local janitorial workers in a labor law case. Now, how they did that was a little sketchy. They studied social media feeds to ensure the jury had a healthy number of Trump supporters in it. Now, this is something that they had boasted about publicly. Now, Fletcher said, hey, look, don't blame me. I didn't work on that case. I mean, I didn't work directly on that case. However, this made the local AFL-CIO, so labor union, make a rare non-endorsement in this race. They said, look, if you're going to vote for somebody, don't vote for Fletcher. Do anything you can. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that Fletcher does not win. So from all that stuff, you can see what side she takes on the issue of corporations versus people power. Seems like a very business-friendly Democrat, your regular corporate Democrat. Okay. Now, other than just, of course, smearing Moser for saying that she has a disgust in living in Texas, as I said before, which again, that she's taken out of context, they've actually levied a more serious charge at Moser. Apparently, they're saying that she is not only corrupt, but she is self-dealing. And this is this is the part of the story that has to do with political consultants. Now, in 2017, They pointed to Moser paying over $50,000 in campaign money to her husband's D.C. consulting firm. They said that more than one of every $6 spent by her campaign went straight into her husband's D.C. company bank account, wrote the DCCC. Oh my God, look at the corruption. Look at the self-dealing. She's taking money for her own campaign money, and she's putting it into her husband's D.C. consulting firm. Insider. She's an insider. Beware. Better vote for our corporate lawyer friend. Or the Goldman Sachs guy. Anybody but Laura Moser. Anybody but her. Okay. So, now, look. Maybe that does sound a little bit problematic, but let me have the Intercept explain. They said that most of that money that went through that bank account went to ad buys. Now, that means it goes through the bank account and right back out. And instead went to the media for, as I said, TV ad buys. Okay. Well, look. Now, who is Laura Moser's husband? Well, this is Aaron Chaudhary. Sorry, I butchered names. That's what I do in the show. He is a partner at Revolution Messaging. Now, wait, what is Revolution Messaging most well known for? Oh, right. They worked on the 2016 presidential campaign of a one Senator Bernie Sanders. Oops. Now, Daily Action, that's the tool that Moser created to help foster political activism in the era of Trump. That Daily Action and Revolution Messaging had a financial relationship, according to public disclosures. So this is all that we've already known. Okay. Now, so the DCCC is saying, look at that corruption. Look at that money flowing into her husband's coffers. Again, this is the group, the consulting group, that worked for a campaign that didn't take any corporate money. They didn't take any PAC money. They got their money $27 at a time. So you're going to say that Revolution Messaging is corrupt and that Laura Moser is corrupt for actually putting money through that for television ad buys for her own campaign. All right, man. You want to say that, but again, the DCCC has been doing basically the same thing, but on a massive level. Okay. So, do you want to know what the DCCC's name in Washington is? Nickname, right? They're called the Consultant Factory. As so many of its operatives, according to The Intercept, go on to be campaign consultants working for the party machine. And look, what they do is they make sure that people who get endorsements to the DCCC end up hiring their consultants that they churn out. Now, let me give you an example of this. James Thompson. Now, James Thompson was a congressional candidate in Kansas. Now, he almost beat the seat, or he almost won a special election for a seat vacated by CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Now, he told The Intercept last month, DCCC told him flat out to spend a certain amount of money on their political consultants. And they had to use their list of consultants to choose from. So they give you a list and they say, you've got to spend X amount of money on these specific political consultants. Gee, I wonder which direction these consultants would go. Perhaps they would say, give advice like, don't be too progressive. No, you got to play it safe. And you cannot dare challenge the corporations who fund us. In fact, there was a memo sent to candidates seeking DCCC support last December. They said in exchange for that support, candidates must hire professional staff and consultants who can help execute a winning campaign. And the DCCC will provide staff resumes and a comprehensive list of consultants, as well as helpful resources to the campaign, including staff trainings. Now, that might sound great, but as I said, you don't have a choice. If you want to use a different consulting group, one that doesn't get paid massive amounts of money, well, you're out of luck. You have to choose from the consultants that the DCCC points out. And it's usually ones that end up going through their organization. Now, Lizzie Peniel, according to FEC filings, has taken that deal and retained Blueprint Interactive. Now, Blueprint Interactive is a consulting group that will help their campaign on digital consulting work. Now, she ended up paying the firm $7,500 in September. Now, that firm also lists Emily's List as a client. Emily's List, of course, supports Fletcher's campaign. Now, again, the idea of consultants isn't bad. When I have a consultant that actually watches my show that I've talked to personally, he's not a bad guy. And a lot of consultants aren't actually bad people, and what they do isn't a bad thing. The problem is that right now we have an elite consultant class in DC that is that has major influence over the Democratic Party. And that's the problem here. They don't actually care about winning campaigns. Why? Because in the case of the DCCC and the Democrats, they still get paid no matter what, and they will always steer you towards television ads. In fact, and of course there's a reason for that, right? Consultants often take a percentage of all media placement of election ads in addition to their consulting fee. Meaning that if a candidate spends more money in television, they get more of a cut. So what are they going to do? You need to buy more ads. Well, in order to buy more ads, which can get expensive, especially in races like California, for example, you're going to have to raise money. You want to raise money, especially lots of it, you're going to have to go and beg corporations for money. That's what's going on here. So, and look, we know that television ads, yes, they do have a role to play, but they don't win elections. You know what wins elections? Knocking on doors, volunteers. And what also helps is actually running on something, a populist campaign. But you don't want to say that around the DCCC. No. Because, look, the fact is that these Democratic consulting groups end up making more money if you do the same thing that the Democrats, most of the Democrats already do. Now, consulting firm Mothership Strategies, for example, earned $3.9 million from the failed special election campaign for John Ossoff. So, now Ossoff, you remember, he ran an incredibly milquetoast centrist campaign. Why? It's because the consultants told him to. The consultants that the DCCC made him consult with told him, run to the center, don't offend the donors, don't stand on anything other than Trump is bad. And what happened? Well, he lost spectacularly. But they got, like I said, about $2.5 million Mothership Strategies got from ad buys. And look, you've got a very deep relationship between the DCCC and paid consultants. In fact, the DCCC's new executive director, Daniel Sania, is married to Elizabeth Christie Sania. After Daniel was named executive director, Elizabeth was made a partner at Greenberg Quinlan Rosner, which is a prominent DCCC consulting firm. And in the 2016 campaign cycle, the DCCC paid GQR $395,000 over 2 years, with Elizabeth Sania not just a partner at the firm, but handling the DCCC account. Wow. And of course, the firm has already pulled in $525,523 so far this campaign cycle. And the firm threw her a party less than a week before Ossoff's loss in Georgia, inviting her husband, which is an event memorialized in Politico's playbook. So, now Fletcher, again, loves corporations, corporate lawyer, and has signed on with the DCCC. Moser is not. She's a Justice Democrat. So she doesn't have the ability to pay consulting firms. And again, Revolution Messaging, which supported the Sanders campaign wanted to get money out of politics. So Revolution Messaging, not necessarily in it for the money, is not necessarily the same. So, of course, Moser, she's in the crosshairs because she has challenged the DCCC, the Democrats' consultants, the elite consulting firms, right? Now, Moser did this by calling them out. Well, not calling out the consultants, actually, but calling out the DCCC for actually supporting pro-choice candidates. In 2017, Moser drew the attention of the DCCC with a piece she wrote in Vogue that goes unmentioned in the party's opposition research. It was headlined, "Want more women to vote? Here's an idea. Stand up for them. Wow, how radical." It went on to slam the DCCC for saying the party would welcome anti-choice candidates. So you have people like Tim Kaine, who is, of course, anti-choice, or at least in his personal beliefs. Now, she wrote, "As a first-time congressional candidate, I've been warned not to criticize Ben Ray Lujan and the powerful Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. I'm running in one of the most competitive House districts in the country, and I'll need all the support, financial and organizational, that I can get from party leaders and organizations. But I cannot hold my tongue while Lujan and the DCCC abandon the commitment to human rights that brought me to the party in the first place." And that, of course, is reproductive rights. Again, she's taking a strong stand for reproductive rights, and Emily's List, which is supposed to be for strong pro-choice candidates, is saying, no, we're going to go with your opponent here, because she's backed by the DCCC, she's backed by the money. And of course, again, this is an example of the party pushing back. Now, they've got several different things, excuses that they're using. Oh, no, she can't win. She hates Texans. She's self-dealing. She's corrupt. She is an insider. Basically, everything the DNC, the DCCC, they're throwing at her. They're throwing everything but the kitchen sink. And again, the DCCC is literally doing worse when it comes to corruption and self-dealing. So it's complete hypocrisy. And it's another way to try and crush progressives who actually do want to change the system. It's maddening. Okay. One more story here. I've got two more. I don't know. Fuck it. Let's do two. Keep going. We're going to keep going. Okay. So there's a big drama coming out of California, according to Politico. The California Democratic Party has declined to endorse any candidate. Now, this, of course, means that Dianne Feinstein has lost her endorsement of the party. In fact, state delegates favored Feinstein's rival, this is State Senate leader Kevin De Leon, over Feinstein by a vote of 54 to 37, according to results on Sunday. So, oh boy. Now, neither candidate reached 60% threshold required to receive the party endorsement for 2018. So look, this is a big deal, right? Because for decades, California has been represented by Dianne Feinstein, and she's pretty much always received her endorsement without little fanfare. Okay. Now, the thing is that finally California progressives, a lot of delegates, have said, you know what, that's enough. We've had enough of Feinstein's conservative positions. We've had enough of her agreeing with Trump and voting in Trump nominees. That's it. We are no longer going to give you our endorsement. Now, again, she is nobody's progressive. She's not a progressive champion. In fact, here she is on the issue of Medicare for all, just in case you are not convinced of her conservatism.
How are you going to help support single payer? Because all the proposals and the reworks that have been coming up with healthcare right now basically are just helping the health insurance industry. People like me, people like our children, and the healthcare people who provide healthcare, the doctors and the medical facilities, the nurses, etc., are not getting any breaks. but the healthcare industry is getting all the breaks. So my question again, how are you going to help support single-payer healthcare?
If single-payer healthcare is going to mean complete takeover by the government of all healthcare, I'm not there. If single-payer healthcare,
if it's going to be a government takeover of healthcare, well then, obviously I'm not for it. So, yeah, that line is straight out of the conservative playbook. That's the Republican playbook. Oh, government takeover of healthcare. Can't have it. Whereas the people in there were cheering for, yeah, government takeover. That'd be great. Because right now the insurance companies are failing miserably to be able to provide healthcare. Why? Because that's not their job. Their job is to make as much profit off of you as they can. And they do that, of course, by denying coverage, raising rates, and things like that. No, we need single payer so we can put the insurance companies in their place. So yes, I am in favor of a government takeover of healthcare because we will actually get healthcare. Check every other single industrialized country. And you can see everybody gets healthcare and it's paid for. You don't have to pay out of pocket. Whereas we pay double than any other country, than the closest country to us, that's the UK, when it comes to healthcare. So, but no, she's not there. She's not there yet. Look, she's 84 years old. When's she going to get there? When's she going to get there? When she's 104? No, she's never going to get there. You know why? It's because she takes money from health insurance companies. That's why she's not there. This woman is completely out of step in the most liberal state in the country. She does not support single-payer Medicare for all, as I pointed out. She has voted for Trump nominees, and she even voted to give $25 billion to Trump's wall in exchange for, or she expressed a willingness, I should say, to be able to support Trump's immigration plan. Now, she's like, oh, but it'll save the dreamers. It'll also give $25 billion to Trump's wall. Not interested. That is a non-starter. So again, she is taking big money from big corporations, health insurance companies. She has supported conservative positions. And so that's one reason to say, hey, time's up. You got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. Now, Feinstein, unfortunately, does have a huge money advantage, as well as being an incumbent who's been there for a million years. Now, she has about $10 million cash on hand. Now, she's got several different opponents in this race. One of them is Kevin DeLeon. Now, right now, he's the one who's leading the primary race. But you also have Allison Hartson. Now, Allison Hartson is an amazing Justice Democrat. And you also have another progressive, David Hildebrand. So, look, you got those people. Look, even Kevin DeLeon takes money from health insurance companies, right? He's still better than Feinstein. And then you have Hartson and you have Hildebrand, who are even better, way better than DeLeon. And of course, they all support single-payer Medicare for all. So, look, that's where we're at. Okay. So, yes. Look, it looks like DeLeon is the closest to getting the party nomination. Again, getting that nomination is pretty important. Now, I've seen some arguments or some articles saying, well, I mean, DeLeon needed to get that endorsement for his campaign to really gain steam. He didn't do it. He failed. He was 3 points shy. So it looks like it's not going to do well. And look, the polling has Feinstein way ahead, too, of everybody else. She's got a money advantage. But look, here's what we need to do. Again, Hartson and Hildebrand are both running really progressive campaigns. It's funny how they don't get mentioned in this article. They don't get mentioned in any article when they're talking about this endorsement. You check NPR, you Politico, Washington Post, all of them completely ignore the actual real progressive challengers to Feinstein. I just think that's really, really funny. Like, look, if you're in California, like, you can help with that. I mean, if like these delegates, you are fed up with pro-corporate candidates, centrism, check them out. Feinstein is leading because there are a lot of people that don't know that there are actual alternatives to Feinstein. Again, Allison Hartson, David Hildebrand. Look into these people. Find out who you want to support. Get out there and support them. And then show that Feinstein, that you either want her to go left or get the hell out of the way. Okay. One more here. This guy again. Now, as if the NRA isn't already under enough, and I kind of hate to use the term, under fire for pushing back against common sense gun control regulations following the 18th mass shooting this year at a school, they have decided to now lock arms with the man who is trying to destroy the internet. So, now during CPAC over the weekend, the NRA decided to honor Ajit Pai, former Verizon lobbyist and chairman of the FCC, with a reward. Guess what this reward is? It's a gun. Now, in addition to the gun, he gets a reward called the Charlton Heston Courage Under Fire Award. God, even the rewards are unbearable. Courage Under Fire. Now, what fire has Ajit Pai been under? Well, I don't know, but Carolyn Meadows, who is the second vice president of the NRA, is going to explain what kind of fire and explain why Ajit Pai, of all people, is getting this reward. Which, by the way, is not handed out every year. Apparently, it's an exclusive conservative reward. They said that it's only presented when a person has stood up under pressure with grace and dignity and principled discipline. So, okay, Ajit Pai kills net neutrality. He makes, which makes him one of the most hated people in America. And so the NRA decides, you are courageous and you have stood up with pressure against the whole entirety of the internet. You deserve a reward, and that reward happens to be a gun. This is fucking gross. This is probably one of the most ridiculous stories I've ever talked about. But it's a real thing. It is a real reward. Okay. Now, Motherboard writes that citing the death threats Ajit Pai reportedly received as part of the backlash to his decision to overturn net neutrality protections, Dan Schneider, the executive director of the American Conservative Union, called Pai the most courageous, heroic person that I know. He's so courageous. He stood bravely for the poor corporations, those poor ISPs that want to charge you more for internet and and throttle and block your content. That's what he wants to do. What a hero! What a hero! And by the way, don't threaten people. Don't threaten to kill people. Fight him on policy, right? Point out his corruption. That's how you win. And most importantly, vote for progressives, so you might actually get somebody in there that can appoint a person who is not an industry lobbyist. Just saying. So apparently, all you have to do to get a reward by the NRA is to do something incredibly unpopular with the majority of the American people. Again, net neutrality has over 3/4 of the country, Democrats and Republicans both, in favor of those rules. And then, when you try to remove those rules that are incredibly popular, and rightfully get backlash for it, all you have to do is claim you're a victim. Victim mentality. Oh, look at these terrible internet people that are after me, that are attacking me for removing something incredibly popular. He's such a victim. He's such a victim. Now, Pai, get this. In receiving this award, this gun, right, he now joins in some illustrious company of other people who have won this rare award. He now joins Vice President Mike Pence, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, and talk show host Rush Limbaugh. There are your conservative heroes. Again, he's the guy who thinks God talks to him and won't eat dinner with anyone except for his wife, Mike Pence. Then you have a criminal who let people die at his jails. And by the way, there's somebody who died of thirst in his jail. And a man who is partially responsible, if not mostly responsible, for some of the most toxic discourse in America, Rush Limbaugh. Good company for this guy. I have a feeling that Pai will fit right in with this group of pretty horrible, deplorable people. Well done, Pai. Well done. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please give us a like. Please give us a share. Consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. That keeps us independent and non-corporate sponsors, so we can all do all these stories that go after the powerful and connected. So you can help us out, patreon.com/TYTNation. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stories. We're going to have another great show tomorrow, so tune in 3 p.m. Eastern right here, TYT Nation. That's it. Thanks, everybody. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. See y'all tomorrow.